What if I told you that in the heart of Pennsylvania's legendary coal fields, every time a brand new mine tunnel was blasted open, miners dropped their pickaxes and gathered to light blood-red candles, lay down sacrificial nameplates, and whisper cryptic spells into the cavernous darkness? From the blood-stained flames flickering on damp walls to the carved pseudonyms peeking out of every nameplate, these eerie rites transformed a routine industrial job into a macabre carnival of the unknown. Hundreds of weathered coal pickers swore they heard ancient chants rumbling through the shafts, and at least 7 of them vanished without a trace by night's end. The official Union archives even feature dusty ledger entries crossed out, as if someone deliberately erased uncomfortable truths. You'd think 19th century coal miners had better things to do, like, say, avoid deadly cave-ins, but instead they moonlighted as amateur exorcists of the underworld. What hidden forces nudged these tough-as-nails workers to dance with death as they shoveled black gold from the earth? Today we're diving deep into tombstone epitaphs, brittle family letters, and forgotten Union minutes to resurrect the secret of Pennsylvania's Abyss Festival. Keep your lanterns lit and your hard hats on, because the next revelation will rattle the coal seams and challenge everything you thought you knew about superstition and survival underground. Stay with us. This is one dark festival you absolutely won't forget. To understand the Abyss Festival's roots, we must travel back to the late 1880s when the anthracite fields around Wilkes-Barre and Scranton were booming in both coal and calamity. Picture a landscape of rattling horse-drawn carts, steam whistles shrieking like banshees at dawn, and wooden tipples towering over muddy lanes. These Pennsylvania hills had become a promised land for plucky young men, many fresh off the boat from Ireland, Wales, and Italy, who signed away their limbs for a chance at steady wages. Local broadsheets like the Scranton Daily Gazette gushed headlines such as "New Shaft Breaks," "Coal Vein," and "Minor Pay Raises Spark Union Jubilation." But buried beneath those cheerful lines lay a darker story. Every shaft sunk into the black earth invited disaster. The work itself was a circus of hazards: coal dust choking your lungs, wooden cribbing creaking ominously, and oil lamps trembling in the draft of a shifting seam. Yet the miners' true ritual began only after shift's end, when weary men marched down rickety ladders into freshly blasted galleries to perform ceremonies that no banker or mine owner dared acknowledge. The Union Hall's minutes mention only annual gatherings, but family letters describe wooden nameplates scrawled with nicknames like Bony Pat and Iron Joe, smeared with blood and laid out on slate slabs under flickering coral red candles. Anecdotes from elderly descendants recall the smell of burnt tallow and the echo of low-toned chants rolling down the corridors, so persistent that new recruits often bolted back toward daylight, convinced the mine was alive with something darker than methane gas. Even geological reports, which dryly cataloged seam thickness and coal quality, hinted at unexplained seismic tremors that coincided with those midnight rites. And while official accident logs chalked up injuries to falls of roof, whispered accounts spoke of shadowy figures stalking the galleries long after lamps went dark. This was an era when superstition and survival coexisted in a cloud of soot and sweat, a world that made today's safety regulations look like child's play. However, buried behind those sanitized archives are torn Union tickets, cryptic diary entries, and telegrams that point to something far more chilling. Let's delve into the clues that blurred the line between labor and legend, because the next revelation takes us straight to the heart of the mine's most unsettling secrets. Now let's descend once more into those blackened tunnels and unpack the spine-tingling clues that turned an ordinary mining operation into a ghost story for the ages. First, we rewind to that fateful night when the newly installed carbide lamps winked out without warning and left the shaft in pitch blackness. Oil lamps don't just explode, right? Yet dozens of miners reported hearing a metallic clatter, as though invisible coal cars were rattling along tracks that didn't exist. One veteran miner swore he felt the rumble underfoot, like the earth itself was breathing, and later showed investigators a series of fresh gouges on a solid rock face that matched the pattern of wheel spokes, but no wheels were ever laid there. Fast forward 1 year to the second major clue, a half-burned diary discovered wedged in a coal chute, its cover charred and edges curled from heat. The diary belonged to a young Welsh immigrant named Thomas "Tommy" Llewellyn, who described in trembling script an apparition wearing a tattered miner's coat and clutching a lantern dripping blood-red wax. His final entry, dated October 3rd, begged future readers to beware the keeper of our names, and then abruptly ends. Historians found no death record for Tommy, yet Union logs list him as missing. Next, consider the strange symbols carved into the mine walls, curved glyphs that no one could decipher. Volunteers from the local lodge spent weeks comparing sketches to Celtic runes, ancient Masonic emblems, and even Pennsylvania Dutch folk magic, but arrived at only partial matches. One symbol, resembling a twisted trident, turned up on an old gravestone in a nearby cemetery labeled "Soldier of the Dark." Eyewitness accounts tell of flickering shadows tracing these shapes as miners passed, as if something unseen was rehearsing a ritual in the silence between shifts. Keep in mind, all this happened in a mine where the coal seam literally hummed with industry. Nobody expected art exhibits underground, especially of the occult variety. Now let's zoom in on the third pivotal clue, the echoing whispers. In the cavernous chambers where fresh coal was hauled to the surface, workers claimed they heard voices debating in a language nobody knew. Some said it resembled Gaelic. Others swore it was a half-forgotten Algonquian dialect. A makeshift phonograph, recording made by an amateur engineer, captured a low, rumbling chant that resembled Einar Ga, which he later learned could translate to doorway or gateway. What doorway, and to where? A local folklorist speculates it referred to a portal between worlds, while a retired state geologist suggests it might be pockets of pressurized gas, creating uncanny acoustic effects. Whatever the source, the whispering chorus left men nervously scanning the walls for cracks or apertures, only to find solid shale. Then there's the curious case of the sacrificial nameplates. Each plate was a roughly cut wooden board bearing a nickname scratched in pig's blood. Names like Coaljaw Pete, Red Annie, and the Widowmaker. These boards were discovered arranged in a perfect semicircle around a central candle holder shaped like a miner's helmet. Family heirlooms passed down to descendants include faded photographs showing these grisly altars, yet none bear inscriptions explaining the ceremony's purpose. Some historians theorize it was a communal pact to ward off deadly collapses, while conspiracy fans claim it was an invocation of a long-lost mine deity. One descendant recalls her great-grandfather whispering that the plates were never meant to protect the living, but to bind the souls of the fallen so they wouldn't wander off and haunt neighboring mines. Let's not forget the final piece of the puzzle, the 7 unexplained disappearances. In each case, a miner vanished without a trace during the so-called festival, and all he left behind was his lamp, still warm, and his pick leaning against the wall. No bodies were ever recovered, and no rescue team dared venture deeper after hearing that same low chant drifting through the black. When questioned, mine supervisors chalked it up to incompetence or a lapse in safety protocol. But the union's secret minutes hint at something darker. They authorized a special fund to cover unfortunate losses under festival conditions. A euphemism that sounds disturbingly like compensation for ritual casualties. So what do these pieces point to? Were the miners conducting a morbid protective rite to appease subterranean spirits? Or did a more sinister underground cabal orchestrate these ceremonies to conceal political unrest bubbling within the Union? Perhaps it was a tragic intersection of folklore, mental exhaustion, and the human brain's response to sensory deprivation deep underground. Whatever the truth, the mine's network of shadowy corridors still echoes with unanswered questions. Did those chants truly open a doorway to something beyond? And if so, what crossed through? As we sift through these chilling clues, one thing is clear. The Abyss Festival was no simple celebration. It was a pact with the darkness itself. Now that we've unearthed every blood-smeared nameplate and decoded the centuries-old carvings, it's time to don our investigator hats and parse out what really happened beneath the coal seams. First, the official records, a deep dive into the Wilkes-Barre Mining Bureau's safety reports, and the Scranton Daily Gazette archives reveals a curious pattern. Though inspectors routinely chalked up cave-ins to unstable shale One memo notes, unexplained tremors coinciding with union gatherings, suggesting someone or something may have intentionally loosened rock to create chaos. It's almost like a mischievous spirit with a pickaxe, or a miner with a grudge and a secret engineering degree. Either way, the paperwork doesn't quite match the union's whispered minutes, which refer only to special festival circumstances whenever compensation was paid out for festival-related losses. Next, we tapped experts who've spent decades wading through geological strata and folklore alike. Dr. Evelyn Parker, a historian of industrial rituals, argues that these ceremonies were an evolution of European coal mining superstitions. Think of it as a 19th century version of a miner's tailgate party, minus the bratwurst and with a lot more blood. She points out that in parts of Wales and Germany, laborers staged mock funerals for coal king effigies as a tongue-in-cheek plea for safety. Meanwhile, Dr. Raj Singh, a mining archaeologist, believes the trident-like glyphs were standard blasting marks that morph under dim light into something uncanny. Human brains are pattern-seeking machines, he notes with a wry grin. Put an oil lamp in a damp tunnel, and suddenly every chip in the rock looks like a rune from Lord of the Rings. Of course, the miner's own descendants recall half-remembered yarns that can't be found in any dusty ledger. Local elder Marion Graham DeLuca insists the ritual was less about spooky spirits and more about solidarity. They'd gather, toast each other with watered-down whiskey, and carve names so if one of them didn't make it, the others would carry his memory out. She chuckles. You'd think they were auditioning for a horror show, but really they were just trying to keep morale up after 12-hour shifts. Yet every now and then, she admits, a terse letter arrives on her porch, black-bordered, smelling of coal dust, warning her not to pry too deep. That's the kind of subtext historians live for. Putting it all together, we face three competing theories. First, the academic case. Miners adopted and exaggerated old-world rites to cope with brutal working conditions, and gas pockets or miner collapses fueled rumors of singing tunnels. Second, the conspiracy angle. Powerful union insiders orchestrated a grisly spectacle to instill fear, keep rank-and-file loyalty high, and cover up industrial accidents. Third, the paranormal hypothesis. Subterranean forces, or perhaps emigrant miners invoking pre-Christian deities, manifested through sonic phenomena and temperature anomalies, claiming sacrifices to maintain a fragile equilibrium between worlds. Each theory has its charms. Bureaucratic blunders explain paper trails, psychological research explains the symbols, and folklore enthusiasts get to fantasize about ghostly coal guardians. So where does the truth lie? As with any good mystery, the Abyss Festival resists neat conclusions. We've got credible documents that conflict with eyewitness accounts, plausible geological causes that can't fully explain the timing, and a tangle of human motivations, from camaraderie to cover-ups to genuine belief in the supernatural. One thing is certain, these miners didn't treat the festival as mere superstition. They risked their lives and their sanity to participate in a ceremony that fused folklore, labor politics, and the ever-present threat of the earth itself. In our quest for answers, the mind still holds its secrets tight, and the question lingers. When darkness falls and the wind whispers through abandoned shafts, is it the wind or something more? As we climb back into the daylight, it's clear that the Abyss Festival was far more than a miner's after-party. It was a pact woven from fear, folklore, and a fierce devotion to survival. We've seen union ledgers clash with family letters, geological tremors mimic ghostly footsteps, and carved blood-smeared nameplates that may have bound souls as much as they bound workers together. Whether these ceremonies sprang from old-world superstitions, a secret power play by union insiders, or something beyond our understanding, the miners of Pennsylvania risked everything to face the darkness. Imagine standing in that cavern, lantern in hand, listening to whispers that might be wind or something more. It's a testament to human resilience in the stories we tell when the lights go out. Perhaps the real magic isn't in spirits or conspiracies, but in how these rituals brought a dangerous workforce closer to one another, forging bonds stronger than steel rails. Yet 7 lives lost to the festival remind us that some secrets should stay buried, unless, of course, Someone brave enough dares to dig deeper. Now it's your turn. Have you heard rumors of forgotten ceremonies in your hometown? Do you have theories about what truly lurks beneath those tunnels? Drop your stories and guesses in the comments below. If you enjoyed unraveling this dark tale, smash that like button, subscribe for more untold history, and tap the bell so you don't miss our next expedition into America's hidden past. Next time, we'll unearth the chilling truth behind the haunted bridges of New England. See you there.